The reason why I asked Nate before the song how he was doing, um, this song to me talks to the very thing Reverend Kelly and I were talking about, which is sometimes our instinctive even feeling that we want to run away. We want to not deal with what's in front of us. We just want to get back to normal. We just want to get back to what it was. And I'm here to tell you today, we will never get back to normal because there's no such thing as normal. And we will never get back to what it was, just like Daniel corrected me, because we can't go back to what it was. We can only be where we are and find the good and find the joy and find the love in where we are, which I see these young men doing all the time. And I think that's a big lesson for all of us that we take through this journey that we're all on right now. Our willingness to be where we are. The question is, when I'm here, when I'm right where I am, what am I tapping into? What am I listening to? Am I the subject of or the object of everything that's happening out here, or am I tapping into something else, something bigger? We were kidding about the advanced consciousness class, but this has been one of the greatest 20 weeks for me because first of all, I have 20 students that are remarkable, bright, intelligent, expansive people who want so much to know more, to feel more, to be more. And as the instructor of the class, not teacher, but as the instructor, some of the facilitator, it's my job to find everything I can find in the material we're reading and bring it forward. And I'm creating these PowerPoints. I think I'm going to have to go to an anonymous for PowerPoints. Hi, I'm James. I'm a PowerPoint addict because I just love creating these PowerPoints and finding out what I'm thinking and what pictures match it. So as we went through these last 20 weeks, one of the things that came up to me was, how much more is there than what I'm seeing? How much more is there than what I'm feeling? How do I balance that? How do I balance what I'm seeing and living with what I'm seeing and living? How do I balance that? Because we all know people that get too far on this side of, we call it the woo-woo, the part of life that's not connected at all to what we have science to verify, but that are way out on those limbs. And we also know all the people out here way out on those limbs saying, nope, this is what it is. It's nothing else. There's nothing more. But I don't judge either side. You get to choose where you want to be on the tree. I'd rather be at the center of that trunk of that 300-year-old oak tree in my backyard with the roots going all the way through probably all of Studio City, Sherman Oaks, and La La Land, all of it. That's where I want to be because I'm willing to go out on that limb. I'm willing to go out on that limb if I can stay here while I'm going and have a real rooted, grounded understanding. Not grounded. I'm grounded in what? Reality with a little r out here, or maybe a reality with a capital R inside of me, feeling. So I'm going to start with a Rumi quote today. Rumi said this: "Shine like the whole universe is yours." That's just the first line of this, but think about it. Shine like the whole universe is yours, because it is. That's the truth of who we are. Remember who you are? You are the entire universe in this one drop, or as Rumi says, the entire ocean in a drop. And then he says, wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every corner of your life. Well, as we live through this, whatever we're living through, however you are living through it, and whatever it is to you, we cannot forget the gratitude. There is joy in this. There is growth in this. There is understanding in this. And I get it, that it would be very easy. We just went through No Complaining Week in Mental Muscle. It'd be very easy to just complain about everything that's going on. But I tell you, you turn around and put gratitude in place of complaining, and you watch how your life changes. So when he says, wear gratitude like a cloak and it will feed every corner of your life, that is not just a nice saying. It's a perfect way to live. And then he says, and this is where I'm going, I have been a seeker, and I still am. But I stopped asking the books and the stars. I started listening to the teachings of my soul. The title of my talk today is When You Just Know. Makes me very emotional even when I say that, because there is something in me that knows, and there is something in you that absolutely knows. I can't prove it to you. You can't probably prove it to yourself, except occasionally when you just know, and then it happens, you're like, look at that. I knew that. It wasn't logical, didn't make sense, but I knew it. So, when you just know. So today when I talk about balance, I want to talk about the balance between what is and the balance between what is. So the balance between what is and what is. Just think about that for a minute. It's so easy to go, well, this is what is. This is what it is. Really? Is it? Because we need to find a balance between what it is and what it is. That's a balance worth really diving into. A balance between what we see and what we know. Now, it's very easy to just live our lives based on what we see. This is what it is. But what if what you see isn't what you know? I can tell you part of my life is very, very difficult sometimes for me because everybody is seeing what is so obvious to see, and yet in me, I'm knowing the good. And not a lot of people want to hear about the good when they're looking at things that are not so good. And they really hate the people that walk around going, it's all good, it's all God. Just trust, it's all good. And that's not where I come from, to be honest. I don't come from this idea of, it's all good, it's all God, just trust. That's not where I come from. Those may be the words I could use, but it's not what I'm really feeling. I'm actually seeing what is and knowing what is simultaneously. And that is the balance that I think we are responsible for having. When we look at this world, when we look at what just happened in our government, this insurgence as they're calling it, there are all those that were part of that insurgence. And there are all those that were part of experiencing that insurgence. And then there's that truth in the middle that looks at all of it and understands, tries to understand what does it all mean. So yeah, there's what is, but what do you know? Is what you know merely the result of what you're willing to see? Or is what you know deeper? Is there a knowing inside of you that just knows? Kevin and I just went through an incredibly interesting week, which we can't really talk about yet, but there were things going on that I saw what was, and I could see what was happening. But there was something inside of me that was like, I just know there's something going on underneath all of this that's moving it all along perfectly. Sometimes that's hard to communicate when you just know it, because that's the whole point, when you just know. We're in a scientific world. You can't just say, oh, I just know that's how it is. People are like, how do you know? Well, I don't know how I know. I just know. And there has to come a time when that's going to be okay, when we're actually going to look to people and go, what do you know? Because I know that there's something in you that knows that you're in touch with. What do you know? It makes sense why many practitioners, when they start their practitioner prayers, they start with, here's what I know. Here's what I know. It grounds you. It says, here's what I absolutely know. And it's not going to be about your problem. It's not going to be about what's going on in the world. It's going to be, here's what I know from a spiritually centered, grounded, rooted place of truth. Absolute truth. Here's what I know. Now, to be honest, I'm also willing to say, here's what I know. I know nothing. Now, what can I know? Because I think it's important sometimes to know that there's more to know than what you're thinking you know. So, oh, that all rhymed. So, I'd like to start with Ernest Holmes, the beginning of the book. How do you know if what you're looking at is true? That's a good question, right? How do you know if what you're looking at is true? So let me start with Ernest Holmes. He says, we all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible to the invisible. So he's saying we all look forward to the day when all the science in the world leaves room for that which is unexplainable. Not just leaves room, but actually finds its way into that room. And they live together. And then he says, science knows nothing of opinion, but recognizes a government of law whose principles are universal. Yet, any scientist who refuses to accept intangible values has no adequate basis for the values which he has already discovered. Meaning, there is something in you that knows, and that something is the basis for the way you know. So there's something inside of you that already knows, and that's how you process. That's how you're able to look at science. That's how you're able to, as a child, grow up and start understanding, learning. From that thing in you, that knower that's back of everything, that knows. That already knows. Something in you that already knows. The question is, are you willing to balance what you already know with what's being told you out here? Are you willing to not be pulled, as Kelly talked about, pulled off balance by the facts and stay literally grounded in what you know and still entertain what there is to know out here? That's evolution. That's when what I know and what the world is showing me come together to grow and emerge. That's what Ernest Holmes is talking about. When you just know, you're willing to stay open. He then says, revelation must keep faith with reason and religion with law, while intuition is ever spreading its wings for greater flights, and science must justify faith in the invisible. Now here's what's interesting. Those are the first 10 lines of the Science of Mind book that has another 17,000 pages after it. But those are the first 10 lines that Ernest Holmes wrote in what would become his masterpiece. And all he's saying is, there is something in you that knows. It's called intuition. So, I'm going to ask you to do something right now. Just really think about something. See if you can find a time in your life, something that happened in your life, where you just knew. Where regardless of anything else going on in the world, there was something in you that said, I know this. I know. See if you can find a place where that happened, where you just knew. Just take a deep breath. So I'm going to tell you a couple of mine. When I was 7 years old, I was in the Cub Scouts. Any of you remember what that is? I was in the Cub Scouts. I had no sense of acting or singing or any of that stuff. I liked to sing, but I really didn't have a sense of that as being something I would do. And they had this little pageant, and they put me on stage in a Good and Plenty commercial. Remember Good and Plenty? There was a Choo Choo Charlie was his name, whatever that was. And they put me on stage, and I can remember to today. Say Good Shepherd Church, Protestant church around the corner. I'm on the stage, I'm in bed, and I'm shaking a thing, and then I said some lines, and people laughed, and there was a spotlight that hit me, and there was something inside of my heart that just went, wow. It was like, this is it. This is who I am. I just knew. And I remember going home and telling my mother and just saying, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be a big star. I feel it. And being quelled by the world around me, like, that's not happening. Come back to earth. Come back. But I just knew. And when you think about that, just this little 7-year-old kid, Cub Scout, who knew, just knew. Now take that just knowing, catapult me 18 years later when I'd be starring in a Broadway show. That started there. Something that I just knew. No matter what happened after that, I already knew. I just knew. Have you had those moments where you just know? There's something that you just know. And then, because I took a lot of time to go through this and go, so what did I? There was a moment when I was 20, and I looked across the room and saw someone. I had no idea who it was, Well, no, I did know who it was because it was somebody who I had seen on a stage. But I just looked and I went, that's my soulmate. And I looked across the room and that was someone I spent 9 years of my life with. Just there was a moment where you just know. Love is easy to use for this. There's just a moment when you look and you see and you feel and you're like, I just know. Now at that moment, I'd never spoken one word. So there's no way I could know anything, but I knew in my heart. 9 years. And then of course, it's pretty easy to know the next one that came up for me, which was Kevin, when he walked into a room and I just knew. And even when we went through an amazingly tumultuous relationship start, there was something in me that kept saying, don't walk away, don't run away. Stay, because this is going to pay off. You just know this is it. And I'm still knowing that. I'm still benefiting from just knowing. No matter what, just knowing. And the last one I'm going to talk about is sitting at a Silomar. Sitting at a Silomar and watching someone speak on the stage in front of me. And a Silomar is a big campus ground where we go for our seminars, our summer retreats. And watching somebody speaking up there and having this thing inside of me saying, oh Lord, I'm going to be a minister. I'm actually going to open a church. Because up to that point I was like, this is fun. I got my ministerial license. I can now go give lectures in the middle of if I'm starring in a show on Broadway, I could do maybe a talk on stage on a day we're not using the theater. That was my mindset. And then I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm going to have to tell Kevin we're opening a church. To which his answer was, we're not. To which my answer was, we are. To which his answer was, it doesn't matter because look where I am. Because what was mine to do is mine to do. What yours is yours to do is yours to know. And guess what? You already know what is inside of you. You already know. When you just know, you know. So let me look at the word intuition. The ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. That takes incredible balance. To know something without having to go through the whole mishigosh of trying to figure it out and asking, and is this right? Is this not right? Is this right? Is this not right? No, there's a balance there of saying, no, I do know. Now what can I know? And another definition was direct knowledge. You have direct knowledge. That's what's so important to get. You have direct knowledge. You have direct input to the infinite wisdom of the universe because you are that. And so you have the ability to know, to just know. And I think we have just wasted a lot of time not knowing, pretending we don't know. How many times in a day do you think you say, I don't know? Not that it's bad to say I don't know. If you don't know, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. But I hear in my head now, when I'm like, I don't know how to do that, I hear, yes, you do. Just look at it, figure it out. I've done some remarkable, I remember when I was in New York and our kitchen had nothing in it. And I decided I was going to build a kitchen. Now, anybody who knows me knows I'm not going to build a kitchen because I don't do saws and stuff and lumber. But I went to the corner of 93rd and Broadway and bought lumber to build a kitchen. And I brought the lumber back to my West 87th Street apartment, and I threw the lumber in the kitchen. And I had a roommate at the time who luckily was a very good craftsman. And I'm putting the lumber in there, and I bought a saw. I bought a saw, like a saw. And I put everything in the kitchen. I'll never forget Jason coming in and going, what are you doing? I said, we need shelves. And he went, do you know how to make shelves? I went, yeah. You hammer? Yeah, I think so. He says, did you measure? Do you even know how much wood we need? I was like, doesn't that look like enough? I mean, that's my way of building the kitchen. And so Jason was like, you do know that I know I'm a craftsman with wood. I know how to build this kitchen. I was like, see, we can do this. And Jason then went and, with my help, occasionally, built us this amazing kitchen with these counters and glass on the counter. It was gorgeous. So there was something in me that just knew that I could do this, and then whatever you need comes along. That's what I believe. That's what we teach. There is something in you that just knows. And sometimes you just got to go buy the wood before you know what to do with it. You have to take the step. So, direct knowledge. My direct knowledge of building the kitchen in New York City was through Jason, through God, through me. But Jason now I know is God. I know I am God. We're the same person. So it doesn't matter who knew how to do it. There's only one. And if we get that, we really get that, life does transform. Direct knowledge. Albert Einstein said, I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I am right. I do not know that I am right. Don't you sometimes just feel that you're right, even if everything tells you you're wrong? How do you balance that? You have to balance it by trusting what you know, but also paying attention to what you see. There is a brilliant place in you and a place in me that when we are right there at the center of who we are, when we remember who we are, there is a knowing. And sometimes it really does take saying, I don't know, but I do know. So what do I need to know? That's a good one. I don't know, but I do know. So what do I need to know? I'll go back and look at that. That looks good. Khalil Gibran said this, when you reach the end of what you should know, you will be at the beginning of what you should sense. So when you're done thinking it all out, what do you sense? And I think he means, what do you feel? What's in there? So what are you sensing right now about your life? What are you sensing about your place in this world? I mean, you must sense that this is not going to go on forever, this pandemic. You must sense that we're going to learn a lot from it. You must sense that people have had a lot of time now to actually think, to quiet down and just think, if you've used the time. So what are you sensing? Alan Alda, one of my favorite metaphysicians, he said this, at times you have to leave the city of your comfort and go into the wilderness of your intuition. First of all, I love that concept. At times you have to leave the city of your comfort and go into the wilderness of your intuition. What you'll discover will be wonderful. What you'll discover is yourself. Alan Alda. So, balancing. Balancing the you out here with the you in here. When you ask yourself, what does my heart know? You are not just asking yourself for some highfalutin la-la land thinking. If you're really willing to ask yourself, what does my heart know? What do I know? I think you're going to find some amazing answers. And sometimes they're scary, aren't they? Because you're going to hear, I'm not happy with this. I need to do this. And sometimes people are more comfortable, as Alan Alda talks about, in their city of comfort than the wilderness of getting to know who they really are and what's really theirs to do and be. And it all starts with being willing to balance yourself between what is and what is. Because there is a perfect balance between the three. So, a couple thoughts to leave you with. I have three things to leave you with. One, listen to what you're thinking before the dialogue begins. Before you get into some major dialogue, even with yourself, listen to what you're thinking. Two, listen to what you're thinking while the conversation is in progress. You know, when you're having these conversations about what should I do, I'm trying to figure things out, most of the time you probably do it with other people, and you're in the midst of trying to figure it out. Take a break and listen. Even as the conversation's going, listen. There is something in you that already knows, that's listening. So listen before you start the dialogue, listen during the dialogue, and then third but not least, listen to what you're thinking when it's all over. What do you feel? When you just know the feelings will lead you into exactly what that is. And don't fluff it off. Don't just say, well, I feel like this, but you know what, here are the facts. No. You know what? We pay way too much attention to the facts in order to not listen to what we feel. Now, I'm not advocating facts as being not important. They are. But what do you feel? Equally as important. You must balance these two things if you want to live your most honest, truthful, authentic self. Facts are important, but your feelings are equally as important. So, listen before, listen during, listen after. One more thing. One last thing. Stop asking for so much advice. If this is true, when you just know, is the advice any more important than what the advice is coming from within you? I think sometimes we use advice instead of listening to our heart's truth. So stop asking for so much advice. Listen to it, but then allow some time to hear what really needs to go on. When you just know, when you really just know, it is so powerful, so strong, so vibrant, you will be able to do anything. Absolutely do anything. You want to talk about how that works? When people say, you have the capacity to do anything. Yeah, you do. If you don't muddle up the process with all the yeah buts and the well-meaning information and advice, without all the stuff crudding up the absolute knowing within you. So that's the balance I would like us to work on this week. Really listen. What do I know? What's being told to me and what do I know? Because you know what? In the end, I get to stand here today and say, there is that in you that just knows. There was that in the 7-year-old me that just knew. There was that in the 20-year-old me that just knew. And there was that in the 30-year-old me, 33-year-old me that just knew. And then there was that in the 50-year-old me that just knew. And I'm going to imagine there's going to be that in the 90-year-old me that's going to just know. I don't need proof. I just need to listen and allow. L-A, listen, allow. La-la land. Where you listen, you allow, and yet you are in the most amazing place on earth. A place that makes dreams come true. That which is inside of you. Namaste.